Welcome to Mennie Talks podcast, talking all business, entrepreneurship, property development, finance and investment.
So Reece Mennie here, your host of Mennie Talks. Got a fantastic guest that helps entrepreneurs and experts in the sector, an entrepreneur and an expert himself, Nick James. It's going to be a fantastic interview, season 2. So Nick, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, really appreciate you having me share with your audience.
Fantastic. So Nick, just for my audience, obviously your business, and we talk about your business, but mainly at the moment, present, you help experts, really events, masterminds and individuals through masterminds and events, scale their business to 7 figures or 7 figures above. That started when you was fortunate enough to attend the Tony Robbins event when you was young, I believe, from the conversations that we've had previously.
Yeah, so I did my first Tony Robbins event. I was 12, and my mum, so 1994 this was, my mum was booked to go to an event in Hawaii with Tony Robbins, and she basically went, "Hey, do you want to come?" And I'm like, "Well, how bad can it be? I can either stay in Birmingham and go to school and do the other things that 12-year-olds do, or I can go to Hawaii," which sounds quite cool. So off we went, and really that was the first experience I had, and I'm sure Reece, you can think of or recall the first experience you had, and I'm sure many of the listeners can as well, that kind of started you on this path that you're on now to host this podcast, a path of entrepreneurship, and really that was the catalyst for everything that's happened since.
Yeah. And for my listeners that haven't heard of Expert Empires, can you explain to them, obviously that's your business right now, that I know about. I've attended quite a few of your events, and my team have as well that work alongside me, and we all enjoy them. Some great speakers, yourself speaks there. Just to our listeners, what, if they haven't heard of it, what it does, and really why they should probably attend the next event when they physically possibly can.
The next event's scheduled for 2027 or something. But actually, as we were saying just before we went live here, we are actually still running events, albeit very small workshop events. We've got our own premises, our own training centre, so we are still running events, just not at the scale we were before. So Expert Empires is it's our flagship event, really. It's a two-day. We run it last year in 2019. We ran 3. We were expecting to run 3 this year, and of course then the world went crazy. But we basically work with anyone who's got a business that is based upon their expertise. So maybe they're a coach, a consultant, a speaker, a trainer, an author, an advisor, a mentor, an agency. Their business is based upon them having a certain expertise or a certain amount of experience in a certain field, and they make their living, or their businesses selling services, sometimes products, to an audience to pass on that information, that experience, that education, if you like. So we kind of have 3 categories of people that tend to come to our events. Either somebody who's just getting started, they've got an idea of, I've got experience in this area, I'd like to start a business as a coach or as a personal trainer or a financial advisor or whatever. The second is somebody that's already doing that and wants to grow their business. And then the third is somebody who's already got an established business and really wants to scale it, because the biggest challenge a lot of businesses have in our sector is the scalability of it, because in the main, the success of the business is really based upon the founder. So, and so Expert Empires is probably what we're best known for. Obviously, we've had some amazing speakers like Grant Cardone, Gary Vaynerchuk, David Goggins.
The list goes on.
So those events have been great for us. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, we also, we're now running smaller workshops at our training centre to still be able to deliver that training in a smaller setting. And really our core business is our mastermind programs.
Fantastic. Well, look, as I said, it's great to have you on, and I think there's a lot of value for our listeners, especially with the world that we live in now, social media, masterminds and communities that are around, is to mix with like-minded people. And obviously that's what you do, and you do bring that together. Before I drill down more into your business and questions, just really, let's roll back to that time that, you got on that plane as a 12-year-old going to Hawaii. What kind of, obviously you said, young kids dream going to Hawaii, but what kind of emotions was you feeling on the way there? What was it like when you arrived and you realised that as a 12-year-old you was going to sit through an event? I suppose it could, if you don't know who Tony Robbins is at that time, be a bit boring, you might think, before you get there. What was you thinking? And then obviously, how did it go, and how did it make you feel after the first day?
Yeah, great question. I think there's probably a lesson in here for anyone that's ever been to an event or discovered something new and then had the desire to bore the hell out of all of their friends about it. This is for you. So, my mum invited me to go to Hawaii, and I'm thinking, like, it's paradise. Why would I not want to go there?
Yeah.
But also, I think the other thing that's important is that, she'd undergone massive transformation in her life, personally and professionally, as a result of her experiences of attending similar events and similar training. So I've seen,
so you actually see that happen?
I've seen this woman, like 12 years of age, I've watched her go from, like unhappy, overweight, making a lot of bad life choices, drinking heavily, all of these things. Successful in a career, by the way, most people's standards, but not happy, not fulfilled. So all of a sudden I've seen this transformation over the course of a year or so where, she's healthy, lost a load of weight, she's left a corporate career, started a business. Like, there's all of these changes she's made, and I'm going like, this is not like this is not the same woman, and this is my mum, somebody, the person that I'm closest to and I love most in the world. And to see that, I'm like, whatever this is has got to be a good thing. There can't be any bad in it, really. And so, I definitely went open-minded, optimistic, and absolutely loved every single second. At 12 years of age, to have the opportunity to be fortunate enough to be around those kind of people, to learn those kind of skills, to be in that kind of environment. I do count myself extremely lucky, for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what stuck out to you the most at that event? What was obviously I know it was some time ago, but what was it that you come away with, your biggest takeaway?
It was only 10 years ago. I'm still a witness. We're talking 25 years ago. So very, very difficult for me to recall, but I think actually the stuff that sticks out from back then is really the simple principles of, that you would learn from a Tony Robbins, or from studying NLP, or following any of the greats of personal development. The simple, I suppose, the fundamental principles, such as you're responsible for your own reality. Everything that you have, everyone that you have attracted into your life, everything that you've achieved or not achieved is down to you. There are a lot of external factors. There are a lot of things that you could choose to blame, but frankly, you can't control any of that stuff. So you've got to take ownership and responsibility. And I think, I think that's a core principle that you would learn from anyone in the kind of personal development, self-improvement field, but one that's simple but not easy to actually live by. And I think, even like 25 years in personal development, still to this day, it's really easy when things aren't going my way for me to place blame elsewhere. Really easy. As a leader of a company, of a team of people, it's really easy for when things don't go well for me to point a finger and place blame. And what I got to remember, maybe this is one for the kind of business owners, the entrepreneurs, especially if you've got teams. All problems in your business are leadership problems.
Correct.
In other words, every single bit of success, I really believe this.
I do.
success that you have in your business, yes, of course, you know, there are people in the business that contribute to it, but ultimately you created that. Well done. Every single problem, challenge, failure in your business, you also created that. And you've got to be willing to accept that if you're going to be in control and if you're going to grow.
That's a great takeaway there for our listeners. You know, responsibility and taking the bull by the horns. You know, when things are going well, it's easy for people to put their hand up and say that was because of me. But when things are going wrong, you know, you've also got to be responsible to say, you know what, it's my problem. I put that person in that role.
Exactly. Think about it that way. You go, you know, I could bitch and moan about somebody in my team who's underperforming, and the bottom line is, you know, I hired that person. And by the way, the bigger you get, the easier it is to shift blame, because you go, well, actually, I didn't hire that person.
Somebody else did. But you hired that person.
I hired that person, and at some level, and I created this machine and this culture and the values that we live by. And, you know, and if somebody's not performing, I at some level allowed the standards within that team to drop, because I allowed the standards in the company to drop, and therefore it led somebody to underperform. So again, it's sometimes quite hard to look in the mirror and blame yourself for everything, but actually it's very empowering when you choose to do that.
Yeah. And from your experience, because obviously you've dealt with a lot of, you know, successful business people, successful entrepreneurs, whether that's been bringing them to the UK to speak, and you've obviously been around them. That's one of the biggest takeaways. Like, mentors to me have helped me grow my business and helped me get to where I desire to be and to still carry on growing. Is that your biggest takeaway from working around successful people?
I mean, I think there's loads. I mean, I'd be the biggest hypocrite on the planet if I didn't believe in the value of mentorship, of coaching, of masterminds, of having a peer group that's going to support you and empower you and stretch you. So, you know, I've invested heavily over many, many years. Of course, in my younger years, through my teens, you know, it was my mum's magic credit card that invested heavily in my personal development, for which I'm always going to be extremely grateful and forever in her debt, no matter how much money I pay her back. But of course, you know, more recently through my 20s and 30s, it's been significant investments of money, of time, of energy, traveling all over the world to be around, to learn from coaches, mentors, experts, people that have already walked the path. I still continue to do that to this day. I have a number of coaches, experts that I invest with for support in various different areas of my life. I've still got a business coach. I'm a member of 2 masterminds myself. And I think all of that's important, partly because I do genuinely believe in the power of it, but also when you're in the business I'm in, like I said, I mean, I'd be the biggest hypocrite in the world if I wasn't investing in the type of programs, in the type of services that I in turn provide, and that I in turn tell people they should invest in themselves.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, look, I've got a question for you for the people that are listening. There's probably some people, business owners that have tried working with a business coach or worked with a mentor, and it, for whatever reason, it hasn't worked. Why would you say that you're different? Your business is different, and what sort of reason should somebody, if they're feeling like that, and this is really a takeaway for people that are listening, because I know, you know, same as me, I've attended some courses and I've come out there and thought, you know what, I didn't really pick up as much as I would have liked to there. There is a lot of courses out there at the moment. There's a lot of online stuff. I'm a big believer in, you know, pick one person and work with that person who you can relate to and is doing what you want to do. But there is people out there that have spent a hell of a lot of money and it just hasn't gone their way. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think lots of answers that I could give you to that question. The first one, I think, is what you actually said. If I can pick out one thing that you just said there, you were like, there's a lot of people out there that are coaching, that are training, that and people haven't got results. What makes me different? So let me answer that first.
Yeah.
And the truth is, I am not arrogant enough to think that I'm perfect and that every single person that ever walks through the doors at one of my events or ever joins my mastermind gets amazing results and gets exactly what they need.
Yeah.
Because I'm human, so are you. And
yeah, some people are going to be happy, some people are not. You can't please everyone.
You can't please all the people all the time.
Correct.
The second thing is, I've got kicking on for just shy of 200 people in my various different masterminds, group coaching programs. And there are a percentage of those that are absolutely nailing it.
Yeah.
There are a percentage of those that are not. And then there's a bunch of people in the middle, of course, that are having varying different degrees of success. It's the same program for all of those 200 people or nearly 200 people. So what are the variables? The individual is the variable, right? So ultimately, if you're investing in a coach or a mastermind or whatever, I truly believe, and it's always been the case when I've invested, that look, of course, I'm going to this person for guidance and they've got to deliver on their promise, clearly, but also I've got to do my bit as well. It's a team game, if you like. So I'm responsible. Comes back to responsibility. First thing we talked about. So, I invest a lot of money with my coach for one-to-one input, coaching, support, advice, whatever you want to call it, on how to grow my business or my businesses. And bottom line, he's there to guide me, but I'm the one that's got to do the work. I'm the one that's got to run the companies day in, day out. I've got to make the critical decisions, and he's there to guide. So I'm under no illusions that it's my job to make the business successful, not his. He's there to guide. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, you already mentioned it, Reese. I think you've got to find somebody. There are a lot of people out there. You've got to find someone that just resonates with you, or you relate to. Again, my coach has experience building companies that look and feel very much like the company that I want to build.
Yeah.
So, you might find a coach who can help you double your revenue, but will they help you double your revenue in the way that you want to do it? Maybe not. They might help you build a culture, an environment that you want to create, but there's no attention to sales and profit. And so really it's about finding somebody that's going to give you what you want and what you need, given where you are on your journey, I think. So look, I mean, let's say there are probably some coaches, trainers, call them what you will out there, that are just fundamentally not very good, as in what they're teaching, what they're suggesting, what they're advising people to do is flawed. But I don't think that's the majority. I think that is the minority. I'd like to believe that the majority of people have the best intentions, that they're doing the best they can with what they've got. When I first started doing what I do now, the first version of this was 2008, 12 years ago. I was not anywhere near as experienced, qualified to give advice and mentorship as I am now. And I'm nowhere near as qualified or experienced at doing this now as I will be in 10 years. All I can do is give the best of what I've got right now. And so I think often it's easy for us to judge someone who's recently started coaching or training. They're nowhere near as good now as they're going to be in 5 or 10 years' time. And just because you've been doing it longer, I think often we should, check our ego a little bit and go, well, we all had to start somewhere.
Yeah. So maybe people that are feeling like that, we would just to sum up, would you say that your advice would be, don't be too downhearted. Maybe take a look at yourself and ask yourself, is this the right fit for yourself? And if honestly you don't think it is, or if honestly you haven't give it your all, maybe go and try somebody else that you could relate to and give a little bit more.
Yeah, well, the first thing, and as harsh as this might sound, it was your decision. So, there's that. I do also hear and see that, as shocking as it sounds, there are certainly some, at best, underhand and at worst, just straight out manipulative and illegal tactics that are used to get people to invest and join some of these programs. But in the main, ultimately, you still made the decision. And so you got to look inside and go, what have I done or not done to get to here? And, look at what you can do next and where you might want to go next. And I think I'm quite a practical person, but I also think sometimes you just got to operate on gut instinct. And the chances are, Reece, and I'm open to being challenged and maybe wrong in certain cases, but the chances are, if somebody's made a choice, an investment, a decision that they've come to regret, I bet you most people would say that at the time when they made the decision, there was a niggling thought or a gut instinct that was telling them not to do it. But they did it anyway, and now it's come back to bite them in the ass. And so, you got to go with gut instinct. And often, you've made a gut instinct or heart-based decision. It felt right, and it's the best decision you ever made. Now, of course, there are examples contrary in both cases, but I think in the main, we can all agree and we can all relate to that. When something feels good, feels right, we go with our gut instinct, our heart, call it what you like. Great decisions and great results tend to be achieved. And often when we're doing something in fear or making a decision from a disempowered state, and there's a niggling thought that this might not be the right move, often that does end up being the wrong move.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly agree, and thanks for that. That's a good takeaway again for our listeners. Just a couple of more questions, Nick, that I know that a few people that will be watching this would want me to ask. When you talk about helping entrepreneurs scale to 6 or 7 figure businesses. What do you think the main challenge is to scale a business to 6 to 7 figures?
Yeah, great question. I think there's different answers to that question depending on where somebody is on their journey. Now, I mean, I've got an entire very detailed framework about what it takes to get a business from startup to making a full-time income, to get into 6 figures, to get into 7 figures. But I'll give you the headline.
Just a generic.
Like when you're starting out, and again, this is a generic, so it's not an absolute. But when you start out, in my mind, the most critical thing for any business when you're starting out is sales. That's it. Like, yes, of course, you need to make sure you've got a good product. Yes, of course, you've got to do some form of marketing, but driving sales, getting customers, getting money in is the most important thing. And I see so many people make the mistake when they start this and they're focused on so much that isn't that. For me, it's like 80-20 rule. 80% of your time, energy, focus, and resource should go into making sales. 20% on all the other stuff when you're starting. Now, to get it to, let's say, to scale a business to multi-6 figures, the chances are there's going to be some shift in focus and indeed in infrastructure to enable you to get there. So when you're starting out, let's assume for most businesses, the business owner is in charge of sales, marketing, customer service, finance, admin, toilet cleaner, you name it.
Everything.
And that's normal. We've all been there.
We've all been there. Yeah.
We were as well. But to get to 6 figures, multi-6 figures, you can't be doing all that yourself. So then it's not just about getting the first sales. Then it also becomes about building something that resembles an infrastructure to remove yourself from the, let's call them lower value or less impactful tasks. So, your basic admin, customer service stuff. It might be, bookkeeping. It might be toilet cleaning, whatever. Then to get 6 figures, you've got to remove yourself from a lot of that stuff and start to leverage your time as the business owner more effectively. And to get to 7 figures, it's that on steroids, which is, I talk about, and you might have heard this principle before, Reece, £10, £100, £1,000 tasks. Of course, I think the person I learned that from was a guy called Keith Cunningham in the States. So it was $10, $100, $1,000 tasks. And so to scale, really, I think if the key principle to get started is sales and marketing, probably like getting new customers. The key principle to scale is actually team and culture. It's building a team of people that can execute on well, I suppose build on the foundations that you've laid, that can execute on the plan that you create, and do the marketing for your business, that can do the sales, that can create the product, that can deliver it at a high level, that can do a lot of that, so that you can be strategic. But so really for me now, where we are in our business or in our companies, my job is to oversee the team and culture and guide toward our vision. My job really isn't, I mean, I still do some degree of sales and delivery and marketing, but you know, my involvement in that stuff is very minor compared to where it was earlier on.
Yep, great question. Great answer for that question, and thanks. That last question, Nick, because obviously just a question for where we are in the climate that we're in right now. So, entrepreneurs, people that are leaving school, that are ready to try and have a go on their own, or people that are in corporate world already but want to start off on their own. What's the best bit of information or the best bit of advice you could give them for a business that's either in its infancy or somebody that's ready to press that go button?
Yeah, great. I think most of the, let's face it, opinions that I give, and they are only that, they're my opinions. I'm not suggesting that this is absolute or universal truth. It's from my own experience, right?
Yeah, of course.
So,
yeah.
When you ask me that question, I go, well, what did I do? And I go, well, you know, I came out of university and I'd had a bit of a stab at running a business and failed dismally because I didn't know what I was doing. And I actually did something that most people would not necessarily advise, but I think is very smart. And that is, I went and worked for a small entrepreneurial business in the field, in the industry that I wanted to get into. So they were probably, when I joined, they were a couple of years in, and you know, they were six figures, but not even a seven-figure business. And I was only there 18 months, and it grew to I think they did 2, maybe 3 million in the final year that I was there. So they grew very quickly. And you know, I learned so much in that 18 months. I learned. I joined in the sales department, so I learned how to sell. I also picked up a lot from being in that environment on marketing. I learned how to, I learned from the founder who'd already had a previous successful business. I learned by observing at close quarters what it took to run a business. I observed a lot of mistakes while I was there. And so that's a lesson. I'm going to make sure I don't do that when I go and do this on my own. So I think actually, you know, a lot of people, and by the way, of course, you know, my business is delivering training and coaching and mentoring. But I think a lot of time people are selling training courses and stuff like that, teaching theory. And actually, I learned more in that 18 months being in it than I could have ever have learned from any training course. So I do think first-hand experience, you know, you mentioned somebody who's coming out of university or college, or maybe they're leaving corporate. I've been in both of those positions. You know, I was at university. I attempted to start a business, but I had no clue what I was doing, failed dismally. And so actually, I think getting some first-hand experience, being up close and personal in an entrepreneurial organization, seeing how it works, is the best advice I could give to someone who then wants to go and do it themselves. You know, it's a bit of patience required.
Yeah.
I think it's a worthwhile investment of your time. You're never going to learn that. You know, the amount of people that join our program, for example, who have been very successful in corporate careers, senior management, executives in big companies, and they come to me, and honestly, it's shocking how little they actually know about running a business. Yeah. And these people have operated, you know, at a senior executive level in huge companies, but they know nothing about running a business in reality, because again, what you see when you work in, you know, let's say you're an executive, a director, a senior manager in a big company, is like such a tiny bit of the whole. Yeah, of course. By the way, I don't want to knock traditional education too much, but I did business studies at university, and I came out of university not having the first clue in reality about how to run a business. Yeah. I learned way more up close and personal with an entrepreneur, shadowing him basically for 18 months than I did in any other area that I could have studied.
I think that's a great piece of advice, to be honest with you. I mean, if you can get close to somebody that that can give you that know-how, there's no better than doing it and acting it every day, is there?
Yeah, and for some people, that isn't the right route, and you go, no, I'm ready, I know enough, I'm going to go and do this on my own, and fair play, go for it. I'm not saying that's the only route, that's just what I do.
Just one route, yeah.
But I still had that moment that you're talking about where I went, right, now's the time. And the truth is, I knew more than I did 18 months previous, but I still had to take the leap. I didn't really know what I was doing. I made it up as I went along, and I got mentoring and training and guidance along the way, which I think has stood me in pretty good stead. But, you know, there's no one way of doing it. But I do think that sometimes I certainly was, as a youngster, quite naive. And I think some people, when they leave corporate or come out of university, are a bit naive as to what it really means to run a business. And I actually just tag on to an answer I gave you to your previous question about, you know, what's most important when you're scaling, about team and culture. The other one's finances. But actually understanding how the financial operations of a business work and how money works. Like, you know, I got to be honest, I learned at university all about profit and loss and balance sheets and all that stuff. And the truth is, I pay so little attention to that stuff now in reality.
Yeah.
Like, I look at it infrequently at best. But no one ever showed me at university how to look at and manage a 13-week cash flow forecast. No one taught me how to read and create management accounts. These are the things that actually are the lifeblood of the financial health of any business.
Yeah.
They're not teaching you that stuff at university. They're teaching you, in essence, when I left university having studied business, really what I'd learned is how to be a really good employee.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I just feel like it was kind of missold. But how I learned actually how to run a business was from being up close and personal with somebody that already did it and getting out there doing it myself.
And doing it, and doing it. You learn a lot. It can be a lonely place. Still a lonely place now sometimes. I mean, and going through that as well, another question to roll onto while we're talking, you know, for entrepreneurs, business owners, can be lonely because, as you said, you've got to make the decisions. It's all right putting your hand up and saying, oh, that one worked. But when it don't work, you've ultimately got to take the same responsibility as the one that did work. For people that are starting out, that's a great
deal. That's the deal. When you decide to set up your own business, when you decide to, you know, go on the uncertain and rocky road of an entrepreneur, you are basically signing up for, if this goes well, you're going to get all the reward. Brilliant. Yeah. If this goes badly, it's going to go really badly. It's not, you know, it's going to be way worse than any consequences that you might face as an employee. And you just got to ask yourself, you're the sort of person that wants to roll the dice and take that risk. And some people want to do that, and some people won't, and that's okay.
Yeah, because you hear of so many success stories. You know, social media these days. You think that it must be simple. You see so many people, so many experts in their field, doing great. You don't get many people documenting, you know, their bad days, and we have them, and it can be a lonely place. How do you pull through them? Do you lean on your mentor? Do you lean on, you know, have you got a right hand person that you work with? What helps you get through that?
Yeah, first of all, what you said is true. I mean, you know, social media seems to be absolutely rammed full of people in our space, you know, sharing all the successes, and very few ever really. One of the things I pride myself on is, you know, when somebody comes to my training or is part of our community or anything like that, I go, look, I'll give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'll tell you everything, no holds barred, because I think it's only fair that you get the truth and you get the context.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it can still be, despite having mentors and being part of masterminds and having a great team of people, it can still be a lonely place, because bottom line, the buck stops with, in my case, me, and in your case, Reese, the buck stops with you, and it's you know, and ultimately you are responsible. So it can, from that perspective, it can be lonely. And you know, I've had some extremely tough times over my 12 years in business, very tough, and which I talk about a lot openly, because I think it's only fair that people should see the reality of it's not plain sailing, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but it's the tough times and the low moments, that they're just part of the game. And I think when you see it as a game, and I really do. But by the way, I always have been and always will be big fan of sports, keen golfer, love football, and used to play a lot as a kid. I was never world class at any of those things, but I love them. And so what I realized is actually the area that I excel in is in business and leading people and being an entrepreneur. And so I'm like, that I feel I can do at a world class level. So I genuinely feel that it's a game. It's not sport to me. And guess what? In sport, you can't win all the time. Sometimes you're going to lose and it's going to feel terrible. And when you win, you can celebrate the success. And so I think for me, that's how I genuinely feel about business. I feel like it's a game. I have to take it seriously because people's livelihoods are reliant upon me doing a good job. But also, I don't take it too seriously because I also know that I do treat it as a game, and I like to enjoy it and have some fun along the way.
Fantastic, Nick. I mean, there's some great takeaways for everybody today, even myself. Really appreciate your time. I know about 2 questions ago, I did say it was going to be the last one, but one more thing has just sprung to mind before we wrap up. Obviously, COVID-19, the pandemic that we're in, has been tough for everybody. What have you learned the most from it, and what's been the most challenging part from in your business from what's happened in the world at the moment?
Oh, cool. I have to say this before I actually answer the question. So you said something which, of course, I guess most people would take and accept. It's been tough for everybody. I'm like, It hasn't been tough for everybody. It's been tough for a lot of people. This is my problem. My problem is that the media are operating in generalizations, like it's been tough for everybody and all businesses have been impacted negatively. I'm like, no, they haven't. Now, I'm not denying that a lot have.
Some have excelled, correct.
Some have thrived, some have excelled. I was listening to a podcast, I think, or something the other day. It might have been, it must have been a podcast because it was recent, and they were saying how the person who was running the podcast, like, some guy I know, business is absolutely flying and just bought this wicked new house, and they were like, what business are they in? And they were like, they supply PPE equipment. Now, I'm not saying that that's look, I mean, that's what their business does. So clearly they wouldn't have probably wanted this pandemic. None of us would.
No, but they've done well out of it.
I do think there's a general acceptance that all businesses are suffering right now, and it's just not true. And I think that narrative has contributed to the economic downturn as much as the pandemic itself has, in my personal opinion. All I'm giving you is my personal opinion. There's a lot of businesses that have thrived because of it. There are many that have failed because of it. My concern is the ones in the middle, which are those who, because of the narrative that all businesses have failed, have just accepted their fate. Now, there are some businesses that had no choice. They had to close their doors. They were forced to do that. But there was a lot who just accepted their fate and didn't even try and do anything about it. And this is where it comes back to taking responsibility and going, look, there's a load of stuff out there I can't control, but also ask myself, what can I control? Look, I mean, I'm in the events business. I had an event at the end of March with over 500 people due to attend that had bought tickets, and I could not run that event.
Yeah.
So that was pretty disastrous as far as things go for my kind of business. And guess what? It was a nightmare and probably caused me to have one of my hardest days in business, one of my worst days in business ever. And I had to ask myself, what can I do? There's a load of things I can't do right now. One of them is run an event for 500 people. What can I do? I can run the event online. I can offer the people that have bought a ticket, incredible amounts of extra value as a thank you for their patience and understanding. I can now, we're a few months down the line, I can now provide training to those people in addition to the online training I gave them. I can give them live in-person training in small groups. It's going to take me a long time to do it, but I can do, and as long as I feel like I'm doing everything I can, then I've done the right thing. And consequently, albeit we've had a slight reduction in revenue this year, more than happy to be open and real and share that. We have seen a significant increase in profit because we've adjusted our business model. And so, look, and this isn't about me going, oh, look at me. I'm going, just ask yourself genuinely, like, what, I know there's a load of things you can't do right now.
Yeah.
Okay. But what could you do? What could you do? And I don't think enough people are asking themselves that question.
Great answer. I agree with you.
I don't think that was actually the answer to the question that you asked.
No, it give an overview of your take on it, which is great as well. And, we're people that are listening and myself appreciate. Obviously, you just said that you did have one of the toughest days that you've ever had in business through it. So when you was in that place, obviously it taught you something and you made a decision to carry on moving forward. What was that?
Yeah, I mean, straight up, when you've got over 500 people who are, a good chunk of them unhappy, dissatisfied, throwing stones, metaphorically speaking, all over social media. In fairness, there was about 100, so about 20% were very, very unhappy, and there was some personal attacks and insults and all sorts of stuff. So your question is, what did I do about it? And there's a few things I did. The first thing I did, interestingly, was nothing. And I think often we have kind of knee-jerk reactions. Especially when it's highly emotive, and in this case, my personal, my personal profile or character was being questioned and attacked. And so the first thing I did actually was nothing, which I think was, with hindsight, a very smart move, because knee-jerk reaction would be leap to defend, and I did nothing. I listened, and then I took like 24 hours to really contemplate and think about what is the best next move here, what's going to be the best interest of my customers, my clients, what's the best interest of my business, my staff, everybody. Let's take all that into consideration rather than knee-jerk reaction. And so I took some time. The second thing I did whilst I was going through that process was I actually went to my closest clients, my mastermind members, and I shared what I was going through. I thought, it's given me a great lesson for them, and that was the primary reason. But actually what turned out to happen was, more importantly, it was kind of like therapeutic and cathartic for me to talk it through.
Talk it through, get off your chest.
Exactly. And it actually, I think really what happened was I went into a place of, how can I turn this into something that benefits others rather than focus on how bad this is for me and my business right now. So switching my focus onto the other people, onto serving, onto making a difference to them, made a big difference to how I felt about it all. And then I made a decision. And that's what great leadership is. It's making a decision even when times are tough. And because actually the knee-jerk reaction, that's almost like too fast a decision. And then the opposite of that is just procrastinating and delaying making a decision. And so I took a bit of time, focused on service and on giving value to our clients. And then I made a decision. And then I stood behind that decision and went, this is what we're going to do. And actually it all worked out great. And, I'm actually extremely grateful for that opportunity to learn about myself, about leadership, about business, about people. It was an incredibly valuable learning experience, one that I'll never forget. And, and it all turned out just fine in the end. I think often when we're in our, I do believe this, I think when we're at our highest highs, we generally seem to over celebrate sometimes. And we're at our lowest lows, we seem to overemphasize how bad it is. And actually the truth is that in a matter of sometimes days and worst case, often only weeks, you're completely forgotten about that big success. And in the lowest, in a matter of days or weeks of your lowest low, you'll have completely forgotten about that as well. But in the moment, I think we attach too much good or bad
to whatever it is. Yeah.
To a reality, and it's not that helpful. I'm not saying don't celebrate your successes, of course, and I'm also not saying, hey, you're not. Sometimes we all need to take a bit of time, and we're going to be down on ourselves. But in reality, I think those two extremes aren't that helpful or healthy, and it's good to know that in the moment and say, hey, in 2 or 3 weeks' time, as bad as I'm feeling right now, this will be completely forgotten. Or
and it feel better.
As good as I'm feeling right now, in 2 or 3 weeks' time, this is going to be forgotten. I'm going to be moving on to something else.
Yeah. Nick, fantastic having you on. I mean, there's some fantastic takeaways, some great bombs in there for people that are listening. I've taken stuff away from that. Been really great having you on, great engaging chat, and really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome, mate. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Is there anything that we've missed before we wrap up, Nick, that you would want to put out there? Any events, anything coming up that our listeners could benefit from? If so, how do they get in touch? How do they sign up if they want to? Yeah,
of course. I mean, nothing significant in terms of events. We are running a lot of much smaller number workshops and mastermind sessions for people to attend. Probably the best thing you could do if you want to get access to more content, more training, be part of our community. Search on Facebook for Expert Empires Community, which is a free Facebook group. There's about a shade over 5,000 experts, entrepreneurs, business owners, mostly UK based, but all over the world. And that's where I kind of show up regularly and offer free training, advice, do Q&As, that kind of thing. And also, of course, where you can go to find out more about anything we might have coming up, or you can go to the main website, which is expertempires.com.
Fantastic. Well, Nick, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. We'll wrap it up. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks, mate.
So for now, what I want to do is thank you for listening, subscribe, leave a review. Look forward to speaking to you on the next podcast with some exciting guests coming our way.